Real quick, before we jump into the show, we created the Collecting Keys podcast to be a real estate investing podcast that is created by real estate operators for real estate operators. And we want operators everywhere to know what it really takes these days to be successful in this business, rather than all the fluff that all the other content creators and podcasters out there make. And so one of the challenges with this is that it's challenging to grow because most operators are too busy out there working, right? And they aren't always learning or actively seeking new learning material. And so if you could please share this show with any fellow operators you can text it to them, you can post it on your socials, you can leave us a good review that you then share somewhere. That would be amazing. But really, whatever, it really helps us continue to get excited to create content. And it will also help you because everyone that you expose us to will get better as a real estate operator and close more deals. So if you could do that for us, it would really mean a ton. And otherwise, we appreciate you guys. And let's get into this episode. In these markets, there seems to be doom and gloom everywhere. If you want to stay in this business, just move to a market that's a little bit better. What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the show by real estate operators for real estate operators so you can continue to grow and expand your business in this ever-changing economy. And you are here today with me, Mike DeHaan, and my co-host, Dylan Cook. Sometimes Dan is here, but today he is on spring break with his kids, so it will just be me and Dylan riffing today. So appreciate you guys all joining us. If you enjoy real estate or you enjoy listening to us, please share this with your friends and other business owners. It's the greatest way for us to continue growing this thing. So cool. So I am fresh out of a little community event that we had down in Utah with our Scale community. It's pretty awesome. We had about a dozen folks come out for that to kind of mastermind for the week. Did a little late spring season skiing, which is a lot of fun. And it's always good just to get people from all over the country kind of together. We had guys from the Midwest, we had guys that are doing business down in the Southeast, several people down like the Southwest, all sort of came together in Utah for a little ski and mastermind trip. And one of the things that was, I guess, pretty interesting is just how, how it is, Dylan, with this kind of business, we kind of all have like the same problems, but it kind of just varies by like degree or like the details just based on the market, and it seems like now more than ever, almost like completely random, I feel like. I don't know if what you're seeing in Ohio and some of like the cities and stuff, but we had like some people that were operating in the same states that were seeing completely different things. We had people that were like across the countries that were crushing it and the markets seemed to be independent of each other. But I don't know, dude.
Yeah, I mean, for what we're doing here in Cincinnati, like I did 11 total flips in 2024 and going into this year for two reasons. One, I was like, I just hated managing 11 flips. So I was like, I don't want to do that many this year. But the second thing was I was a little bit pessimistic of like listening with like what the mortgage rates were, the affordability stuff that we talk about. So I've been more wholesale friendly. And honestly, like I see stuff that's listed now and it goes pending in 2 days. I'm like, should have done it. I should have but I didn't know that at the time. So it's being conservative, but it's like been kind of on fire here.
Yeah. So yeah, and is it like that all over Ohio or just in Cincinnati?
No, I mean, I maybe I'm not the best person to ask for that, but I don't think so. I think like Cincinnati's good. I know Columbus is still red hot, but outside of that, like even the like suburb markets out of here, I think it's been still pretty seller friendly.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Is it like homeowners that are moving there for affordability?
It's actually funny you asked. The Cincinnati specifically had a net migration in for the last like consensus that was done. I'd have to look if that was 2023 or 2024. But they broke that down. It was actually more like residents left. The new people that came in were mostly like minority based, like migrants.
Really?
Yeah. And I think a lot of that was, this is going to be all of it. Procter & Gamble's like the biggest employer here. They're expanding a lot like out here. And I think that brings in a lot of international talent too. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's always like little stuff like that makes a bigger difference than you think. I know one of the things you posted in our Slack for the pre-show is this came up last week and we failed to talk about it, but how Zillow is expecting like national home prices to fall. They said 1.7%, which Dan responded really means 10.7%, which I think is
yeah. And they're looking at
probably true
year over year from like March to March. But like if Zillow is telling you that prices are going to fall, like hell is basically freezing over, right?
Of course, because their entire industry is based on people going on there to buy houses and being able to sell leads to agents. But the main notable areas are like New Orleans, you had Austin, you had San Jose. I know the entire state of Florida is in really big trouble.
Yeah.
I've been hearing this through the grapevine.
If you see the schematic that they posted on here, like Florida has more listings year over year than like any other state by a large factor.
Yeah.
Followed by probably like East, Southeast Texas, and then maybe California.
Yeah.
But it's some of the ones that are like, the most trendy on the way up, also the biggest fall on the way down.
And something that we talked about this before the show that I've kind of observed, which is interesting, is a lot of like the red states that were just super red hot in 2021 and 22, which people were fleeing to because of COVID or because of running away from the liberals or whatever. Those markets, I feel like, are the ones that are going bust now. And is that the result of like just the massive boom? It's basically like the after effect of it, or is it the fact that these states, like the red states, typically have a much lower income, and as real estate prices have gone up, there's just like less people in general that can afford houses? Because up here in Washington State, dude, stuff's on fire.
Yeah,
we had listed a property in Tacoma over on the west side of the state, just south of Seattle, and we had 30 walkthroughs in the first weekend. And we got 10 offers, and we ended up accepting an offer that was over asking price by a decent amount with no inspection or anything else, like 2021 vibes. Right. And this wasn't like a special house. It's like a standard house in like a neighborhood. It's a hotel. So we just made it look nice enough, but it wasn't like a full reno or anything.
I mean, my first question to you, Mike, was like, is that one of the only houses that are listed in the area? Like that's affordable?
No, dude, there's several. And I think where this one kind of stood out was the fact that we did go the little bit of the extra mile and we put in the new flooring. We redid the bathrooms, right? And, the kitchen, I think we threw on a new countertop. Right, our total rental one was like $16,000. It wasn't crazy.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
But it looked better than the competition in the neighborhood that was fundamentally the same price, right? And that's the thing is you just got to, when it's a more competitive market, when it's a buyer's market, you have to be the one that stands out. And also what we did too is the other houses were listed in the neighborhood for like $430, $440. We listed ours at $425. So it looked better and it was cheaper. And guess what? We got an offer for $440.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everyone went to our house. So it drove up the price there.
Exactly.
And then we had similar in Spokane, right? So it's over on like the red side of the state, but we listed a house on Friday. We didn't have quite as much traffic. People here generally have a lower income, but we got several offers in the first weekend and we accepted one that was, I think, $7,500 over ask.
Wow.
On Monday. So
yeah, on Monday. So like both of them went within the first 72 hours of them being listed.
Yep, all listed on Friday, all pending on Monday. Easy deals, right? But the thing that's interesting in Seattle in particular, people have always kind of ripped on it because of the politics and that sort of stuff, but it does have a generally high income. A lot of people move there as families because they have a good schooling system. It's a beautiful area, have a generally high quality of life. It has amazing outdoors, right? And there are a lot of like larger companies that are there. And even though it has high sales tax, we have a high property tax, it doesn't have a state income tax. And some people, believe it or not, do want like the blue politics, right? And so they figure if they're going to go somewhere, that's kind of the place to go. And rate that you're seeing real estate fly off the shelves there, I think is very reflective of that.
I think a lot of real estate investors specifically definitely fall on the right side of the spectrum, of the political spectrum. But if you're a doctor or an engineer or someone like who is just a high W-2 earner, we can't live in our own echo chamber. Like those people have high paying jobs and they want a nice place to live and they don't really care about anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. And if they can go and they can have their place on the water, and sure they have to pay their income tax, but they're going to have to do that. Their family tax can have to do that anyway.
Yeah. I mean, their biggest things are probably the quality of life for the family and like good schools.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even here, like Cincinnati is blue, but like the general area is a red state. And there are specific areas of town where I'm like, you're willing to more take not a risk, but like, I'm not worried about this not selling because it's been one of the best school districts in the local area.
For sure.
And like, those are fewer to come by, but when those opportunities arise, those are the ones you have to take advantage of.
Absolutely. And I think that's realistically what you need to be doing with your business right now is, in order to do this transactional real estate business, you have to have buyers. So what you should be doing is looking where stuff is still selling and move your business there, whether that's internally within your market, right? Sure, you might find less deals because they're harder to come by, but that's also the opportunity, right? And you would rather have fewer deals you can actually sell than a bunch of crappy deals that you're just fighting to get off your books.
Especially true if you're taking them down either wholesale or flip.
Absolutely.
But even a lot of the buyers that I talk to are like, I want it in this school district, or like they're just being more selective in the areas and price points that they're buying at.
Yeah.
Which I can say, actually, it's funny. That's a side tangent. Me and a buyer were going back and forth on a price for one of the properties that's not far from my house. And I was like, I thought ARV is probably like $335. The price per square foot would have been pushing it a little bit. So he's like, we'll do it for, and he got me like $2,000 off my ask price. I was like, whatever, get the deal done. So all said and done, I remember $335. He listed this thing at $359, and then they got an over ask offer and they ended up selling for $372.
Wow, that's crazy. That's like 2021 vibes to the max.
Yeah. And that's a good thing about this buyer. He actually paid me my $2,000 off the original. He brought me back and like gave me my original number.
Nice. There you go. Yeah.
So it is what it is. But like, that's the thing, man. Like, that's the thing that they're looking for.
Yeah. If you are in a market where it isn't really experiencing that, or if you're in Austin or if you're in Florida, you're in these markets where it seems to be doom and gloom everywhere. If you want to stay in this business, just move to a market that's a little bit better. It's relatively easy to run a virtual market right now. Sure, you won't get to have your trusted handyman go and like walk all the properties. Just find a new one. Like there's more people out there. I was texting with mentioning with a guy on Instagram today, young guy, and he was trying to figure out his business. He usually lives here locally and he's been doing stuff in Florida. And I was like, bro, stop doing stuff in Florida. I was like, just go find deals here, and I'll show you how to take them down, or just send them to my team and we'll close them and we'll split the deal with you. I don't care.
Yep.
I was like, there's stuff that's red hot up here.
Yep. Yeah, actually there's a young guy here that lives here, but he also does stuff in Florida and like only land. Like only these like small like land things, but he's making it work for right now. And he's texting. I'm like, bro, how are you texting right now? I don't know how to get past the regulations.
I know. I think they're just playing with fire if you're doing that. I've seen a handful of guys doing that. In my mind, that's kind of a ticking time bomb. But it's just interesting. Like just be realistic, right? Like don't try to force stuff in your market if it isn't working. Like don't be afraid to go other places if you want to be a professional in this business. A big thing about being a professional business owner is being adaptable. And if you're going to keep just like fighting tooth and nail, like we don't have a brick and mortar style business. You can do this everywhere. It's not like you have like a bookstore or something where you can't like move your bookstore to somewhere that's better.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Or you can't like stand up an e-commerce chain of your bookstore. It's not going to do anything. But
and if you did, this, whatever worked in 2022 and 2023, I'm sorry, it might not work right now.
It's definitely, yeah.
Like, and that might be your underwriting, that might be your marketing, that might be the buyers. There's a whole different things in this business that could change. That is a variable that changes another variable. So, and find people who are doing it. Most people are more likely to like you just said, collaboration with your competition. Like you're going to both make money.
Yeah, for sure. Like people asked on the scale call today, we started to talk about starting to do some more stuff at Tacoma. They were like, well, how did you sort of get going with that? And I was like, well, we had Greg on the show a couple weeks ago and he's there and he's a good operator and we got a lead there. So we just JV'd it with him. And then we're like, we should do more of these. And that's what we're doing. Like, if you want to find the market, just go and peruse, the local Facebook groups or go and look on PropStream, see who the good buyers are and find people that are doing high transaction volumes in a market. Find leads there and then just go to them to get your first ones done. Sure, you might give up half the deal or more, but that's how you learn how to, learn about their connections, learn about their process, and then you can do it on your own, but you got to figure that out.
And you could be a data nerd with all this stuff. Like, don't go too down in the weeds where you're not doing any work and just looking at the data. But most things, the public records, you can figure out, okay, most of out of 100,000 purchases, 30,000 were cash buyers in this zip code. Like, you can find that kind of data out between different jurisdictions. And so, go where the most cash buyers are.
Yeah. You don't understand, Dylan. I just want to ask ChatGPT, where the best markets of wholesale real estate are, like everyone else, and that's going to go.
Can I actually tell you a story about that real quick? There's someone in our scale group that messaged me and said that, we asked, I think it was ChatGPT or one of the AI things. He's like, what the best zip codes in Cincinnati were to have an off-market business. And the ones that they provided I literally would have been the exact opposite of what I would have picked here.
Yeah.
Locally. So this shows like...
Was that Alex?
It was. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Somebody Alex would do. Yeah. I mean, it's funny with the AI stuff as I have been using it a lot for doing some systems, basic stuff. So like we just hired 3 junior acts to work in our office, basically just doing cold calling and like some general pre-screening stuff. And building out their processes on like Mojo Dialer and all those things was actually really great with ChatGPT because I literally just told it what I wanted to do within Mojo. And it wrote out the entire process as it exists in the app, which is pretty sick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then what I did is I just basically read through it and I just grabbed screenshots of what it was talking about and just pasted them into the doc. And I'm like, cool, SOP done. Took me 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. That would have taken you hours prior to that.
Absolutely. Stuff like that's great. But like if you're trying to use it for like subjective things, the problem is it just comes with whatever bullshit's been spewed onto the internet, which we all know is trash most of the time. You don't really realize how little people on the internet know about stuff until you're reading about something that you actually do know a lot about. Right? Have you ever noticed
that? Yeah.
and ChatGPT is just eating garbage. And so it's going to spit garbage back out.
That goes along the lines with once you've been doing this for a while, you almost underestimate how much you know compared to when you first started.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I think I had a conversation with someone the other day and they're like talking about this like running comps or like getting an ARV. And it's like, okay, Lisa, this is where the conversation is starting. And I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that other than like, don't sell yourself short because you probably know them more than you think you know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's called, is it the Dunning-Kruger effect? Is that what that's called?
Yeah. Yeah. At the beginning, you're like, I don't know anything.
Well, yeah. Yeah. But then you know everything, like kind of step one.
Yes. And then once you learn more, you realize the more you didn't know prior to that.
Exactly.
The other thing that, so I listened to this episode twice.
Yeah.
And there's a guy called the Reventure Consulting. And he just had a kind of a grab your attention headline of 50% of the US will see falling home prices this year in 2025. But he basically just, I think what he does is he takes a lot of Redfin data because they have a pretty good API and like makes pretty good UI out of it, user interface out of it.
Okay.
He noted it's the worst of housing affordability since 1981. Like, and basically since pre-2006 is when the next closest outside of 1981. He was very good at basically saying, prices need to come down because it's unrealistic that wages are going to continue to come up. And he's also unrealistic to think that the Fed can cut rates all the way down to 2 to 3% to get the 10-year down, right? Because we also can't do that. So like the only thing that really is left to do is prices to come down. If those alligator jaws have to close at some point.
Sure.
And he had a poll on here of his YouTube audience of 18,000 people, which I guess isn't nothing, but it's not huge. And 58%, like they don't care about what rates are. They just need prices to come down. And 34% said they would need the mortgage rate to drop to 4% or lower for them to consider borrowing. To me, that just is like a lot of people who do own homes are probably kind of quote unquote stuck in their house because they can't afford anywhere else.
Here's also the other thing I would say. So it's his 18,000 people on YouTube. Who's watching YouTube? Young people.
Yeah, the people who are going to be like researching that exact topic.
Well, and not only that, but like the younger people that their only knowledge of what real estate mortgage rates look like is in the 4% because when they were getting into their early 20s, early to mid 20s, that's how things were through like 2019 to, 2023, 2024. Now they're seeing rates as high. But even those of us that are a little bit older, like, I mean, God, my first house that I bought back in 2015, I remember getting mortgage quotes that were in like the mid sixes.
Yeah. I think I was around 6 for my first one.
Yeah.
I've been 2018.
Yeah. I think we bought ours down to like 5.9. And that was like pretty sweet back then. And then even like getting like up to 2020, like when I was doing my first DSCR loans back in 2018, 2019, it'd be like 9.5, dude.
Yeah.
On some of these. Like it was incredibly high.
Yep. Yeah, but the problem is like that was at a price that 9.5 still made sense.
Yeah, for sure.
To me, 9.5 doesn't make sense on a lot of stuff anymore.
It doesn't. Yeah, for sure. It's always interesting with stuff like that. I mean, you're at 18K isn't a large sample size, but it's not insignificant either. It's not like some of the studies you see where like they asked 30 college kids in New York City what they think. It's like, yeah, it's not a good sample size at all.
Have you seen, there is a guy on YouTube that's like a series that goes around and basically asks like what he appears to be boomers or maybe the Gen X's. It's like, could you afford your house today if you just started? And a lot of them are like, no. They're lucky to buy it in the 90s and they've never refied. They never did anything.
Totally. Dude, fuck. Even if you bought it in 21, like I couldn't afford this house that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
No way. If I had to buy this house with a 7.5% rate, I'm in this thing at 2.9.
Well, yeah. See, that's a huge difference.
Yeah. My monthly nut on this would be like 10 grand in this house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wouldn't do that. Like it's not worth that to me.
Yeah. No, actually, we just got our escrow balance is increasing on ours because our, insurance and property taxes went up last year. It's not actually for the audience. If you have PMI, the private mortgage insurance, we still have that because I'm just an idiot and never got rid of it. Like, we probably have the equity to get rid of it. So that'll be one of the phone calls I have.
Yeah. Yeah. How long have you been paying that for no reason?
Probably 2 years too long.
Oh, shit. That sucks. Just flushing that down the toilet. Does that just go to Uncle Sam?
PMI, I think, protects the lender, right? Like, so it's like the lender's just getting an extra kickback.
But wouldn't the lender be Fannie Freddie? I'm assuming they bought your note.
Maybe it goes to the servicer. Probably. Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
But you're probably right. It's this private mortgage insurance. Ours is like $800 a year total.
Yeah. There's some private mortgage insurance company that's owned by like fucking Nancy Pelosi's younger nephew that's just like making all this money. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So is that like sub 2 insurance? Is it the same thing? Sounds like it. See how much it's protecting them when all these FHAs blow up.
Well, the problem with like PMI is it's almost like the people who have to pay it are the people who have the lowest down payment or the people who probably can't afford it. So like you're taking away discretionary income from the people who don't have any.
If you think about that, right, that is the biggest flaw with the mortgage industry is the people that have lower credit, lower liquidity, they want to charge them more money because they're more risky, but they're also more likely to fail. And if you make it harder for them to succeed, of course, they're going to be more likely to fail.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, it fully makes sense that they would want to make it harder for that person to qualify for the loan because they want to save their money for the more qualified individual.
If anything, you should be like, okay, we'll give you a higher rate, but you can only borrow up to 60% LTV or something stupid.
Well, exactly, right? Or the rate kind of like stays the same and it reduces how much debt they're allowed to get. But the problem is the entire industry wouldn't work because most of those people are poor. So that's the root of everything is that the vast majority of people that have been buying houses cannot actually afford houses. Hey, so you've heard us mention our Scale community before, and I don't have a lot of time, so here are the quick highlights. In Scale, you get all of our processes and systems that we use to do about 150 deals every single year. You also get a community of investors that are verified crushing it in their markets. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be members. And that way you don't have to waste time with non-starters like you find in other groups. You also get preferred relationships with marketing companies and even lenders that will give you 100% financing. If you just heard all that and said, nah, I don't really need it, that's not going to help me, I don't know what to tell you. You're lying to yourself because all of those things are guaranteed to help you explode your business and buy more deals next year. So go to collectingkeys.com/scale and let's see if you qualify.
There's similar themes that we talk about a lot on the show, but I think we might see actually start a trend, depending on where you're at, obviously, but like, I don't know, prices, at least here, it might still be red hot, but they're not really going up.
Yeah, I'm not here either.
If that makes sense. Like they're going quick, but they're not, like the ARVs are kind of staying the same.
Yeah, like our prices are like dead flat across everything. They've been the same since 22. Like, I don't think we've seen any growth in prices since like late 2022. But if you have a good property, it'll still sell. I wouldn't say like in a weekend, like that is kind of an anomaly that we had that. But in a couple of weeks, for sure.
Yeah. We had one that I tried to wholesale as a duplex. And like, I didn't really do anything to it. I just bought it and threw it on the MLS. And I had a appraisal, literally like done because for the hard money stuff, I uploaded to MLS and as this value is $215, I listed it at $215. I had like 2 walkthroughs. I didn't get any offers.
Yeah.
So I was like, but I think it's because it doesn't look great.
Yeah.
Right? I think presentation matters more than anything else right now. So we took it down. We're going to put some money into it and relist it for a higher price, obviously. But
it's just like everything else, right? It's marketing. It has to show good. It's just like if you have a restaurant and you try to have like weird stock photos of food that look gross and aren't like your real restaurant items, then
yeah,
you're not going to get as good a business. You had some good dirt on a guru that's failing, which is always one of my favorite.
It's a Robert Ritzenholler. With REM Capital.
Okay.
And basically they have like 5 properties under management here in Cincinnati. But here's a news article.
I just love some guru trash.
City of Cincinnati sues real estate investment company accused of allowing squalid living conditions at apartments. And basically like says these tenants have running sewage,
nice,
cockroaches, unsanitary conditions, active water leaks. And so the city is suing them for uninhabitable conditions.
Yeah.
And this is just one of 5 that they own.
Nice.
And so I dug a little bit more in today and I realized he's $170,000 behind on property taxes on one of them.
Nice.
And he has mechanics liens out the ass. And I think his wages are getting garnished by someone else.
Perfect.
All this to say, like, all of these properties were bought in, like from 2020 to 2022.
Yeah.
Every single one.
She's probably starting to come up on those like nice little commercial rate adjustments and everything else. Dude, like, there's so many of these guys right now. I mean, even like the biggest names, right? Do you follow that Ballbusters Instagram page?
I don't follow him, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, they're a pretty funny follow. But there was one the other day where this guy, he was posting his luxury apartment that he lives in Miami. And this place is like a piece of shit, right? And it's supposed to be like a fully furnished thing and it's super expensive and all this sort of stuff. And like all this is falling apart. It's owned by Grant Cardone.
Oh, wow.
The apartment complexes. It's a 10X building.
Yeah.
But like, I guarantee you that when you're playing at that level, they're all just business or financial decisions. Like, yeah, we will let like 85 people live in squalor because why would we put more money into it for no reason? You know, especially if it's non-recourse debt.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You have the little bit integrity as a human being, not being a piece of shit.
Absolutely. Like, you know, a lot of those guys though, I mean, everyone says that until all of a sudden you're on the hook for $25 million that you don't have, that you've embezzled from other people. You know, and I'm not justifying what they're saying at all. I think that they're absolute dirtbags, but that's the situation that a lot of them get into, especially the ones who only started in 2021.
Yeah. And the problem is, like, I'm not going to divulge this, but like when I skip trace them, there's a primary address on here.
Hell yeah.
And I can look it up, right? And it's a nice place.
Yeah.
So like, where is this money actually going is the biggest thing. Like,
hell yeah. Let's go door knock him.
Well, I did cold call him and the voicemail said his name. So I'm,
God, he's come on, dude. If you're going to be a criminal, like at least get an LLC and what am I talking about?
Like
the lawyer.
VoIP phone or something, man. Like,
I don't know. I blank the lawyer that you're supposed to like make for your LLC. You know what I'm talking about? Like the contact.
A lawyer that's supposed to make your LLC? I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about? I'm brain dead. But yeah, like at least have it go like a registered agent. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like the people can't find you and it just goes to some random office. Like, come on.
Well, and the other thing, and this is just hilarious with the same one, is they didn't like do the entity transfer type stuff. So he got revalued from like a 1 million, 1.2 million valuation to like a 4.5 million valuation.
Okay.
That's why his property taxes went up so high. And that's why he's delinquent so much.
Nice.
If you're going to raise millions of dollars, just know what you're doing, at least to like some level of basic competence.
Yeah.
This is all to say, like, there's a theme here that maybe there's more blood in the streets. And I'm trying to capitalize on it. Like, if I can reach out to him and buy it and save face and he can get some of his investors' money back, could be a win for everybody. But
yeah. No way, dude. It'll be gone. You've been seeing that a lot with GoAbundance guys too, is like a lot of these guys that were investing with these new operators in 22 and 21, all their deals are going bust. I have one of my GoPod friends. He's literally lost over $500,000 in the last year, all off of syndications.
Oh my God. From LP positions?
All from LPs. Yeah. With like credible operators too, dude. Like people that were like on stage at the events and they gave them money and then they've lost all of it. Some of them have done it with like, okay, cool, we're going to try and figure this out. Other people have just like popped smoke and disappeared.
What do you think the crux of that is? I mean, obviously people say we're going from 3% to 7% interest rates, but were they assuming that rates are going to be 3 on the refi?
I think that's a big part of it, right? I think that they didn't understand how like increased interest rate would affect your caps.
Yeah.
Right, your cap rate. I think there's just a lot of ignorance that happened there. I think there's also a lot of people that grossly underestimate how much projects for things like that cost.
Oh, sure.
Right? So they end up going over budget. You know, and when you're doing like a 15-unit apartment complex, going 10% over budget can be like $1 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It can be very, very significant depending on the lift.
One of the major things I saw when I was pitched some LP positions, I only looked at ones that were kind of local. There'd be a certain, neighborhood, and they're like, well, based on 3% rent growth over the next 5 years, we think that a 1-bedroom is going to rent for $1,500 in the zip code. I'm like, there's no freaking chance.
Totally, dude.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a little bit of responsibility on the LP as well as the GPs with those, is being able to see that and call bullshit. Because I'm the same way. Is you look at some of those and they're like, oh yeah, 1-bedrooms, their studios rent for $800 in this market. I'm like, do they though? Like, I understand that they have now, but when you suddenly have 1,000 more of them, are they all going to rent for that?
Yeah. Yeah. And then like they do the agreeable gray in the walls, gray floors, gray cabinets.
Exactly.
And it's just like, there's no amenities. Mm-hmm. You're just a 1960s building. Yeah. You have a boiler that you pay for the heat that you didn't count for. Like all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I think a big part of it as well is back then, because everyone was in, I mean, we saw this with house flippers too, dude. People would be buying these houses And I'm like, there's no way they make money off of it. And then sure enough, they would sell it 3 months later for like a $35,000 profit because the market was just like on fire. And so you got all these people that had this sort of ego that they couldn't lose, or there was like this whole thing of like, well, other people lose, but that's not going to happen to me because I'm smarter than everyone else. Right.
Yeah. Ego's the enemy.
Yeah. So, when you're playing with other people's money, it gets weird. And then also too, when you're raising money like that, what a lot of the newer GPs would do, because they would get taught this, is that was in like the peak of like never invest with your own money kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Is they would make so the capital stack was completely favorable towards them and the LPs just got screwed if anything went sideways.
Yeah. Or a lot of it's posturing. They would say things like, we don't make money unless you make money, but they're taking like a 2% AC fee, a 1% property management fee.
Yeah.
Even going like rehab construction fee. They just add all these bullshit fees on the back end of it.
Yeah. That's always my biggest knock on that kind of industry and in general is it just doesn't make sense. I also think that a lot of the wins that they were trying to get weren't that good for the size of deals that they were doing.
Yeah.
Like I remember at my first ever GoBundance event talking to this guy. He was a young guy. He's probably like in his mid-20s. And he was trying to do these syndications. And I say it wasn't trying. He was doing them. And they were like these like 30 to 40 unit apartments in the Midwest. And he was like walking me through the numbers. And I was like, wait. So let me get this straight. If everything goes exactly how you want, when you sell this property in 4 years, which would not even be now, this would be in like, 2026, this would be happening. I'm sure he's going to get wrecked if he hasn't already. I was like, so sell a property for years, you're going to make like 120 grand. And he's like, yeah. He's like, and then the thought is basically you just have a couple of those that you sell every year and like, that's how you live. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, dude. With how much money I make. I was like, I can go and flip 3 houses and make 120 grand like next month.
Yeah. And that's an important point. And because I think people get enamored with the unit counts and the AUMs and all the glamour, shiny objects. Whereas reality is like this off-market business, you can make a lot of money in a short amount of time.
Yeah, you can. If you're going to raise money, you got to like be an expert.
120K for 4 years is like 30 grand a year.
Dude, it wasn't a lot. And these were deals that he was buying for like $1.5 to $2 million, right? And he was like doing a little value add and increasing rents and he had all these different things that he was doing. And I'm like, sure, I guess on a $1.5 million profit, $120,000 profit is okay. But not if you look at like the time horizon, especially because his whole thing was he was heavily trying to just raise capital, do all of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what happens when that doesn't work out? And I'm sure he's going to get roasted. And those all start coming due. But.
Yeah. Well, if there's books coming out about how to raise private money and there's like 10 of them that all come out at one time, that should be a top indicator.
I know, right? Yeah, no shit. It's like, that's with any book right now, dude. They're all trying to sell you something.
That's true. That's a fair thing. But like, I don't know, books had like a heyday, I feel like 5-10 years ago.
Well, yeah.
And like, I don't feel like anyone reads anymore.
Well, they don't read because there's no knowledge really in books. Like that's actually a Alex Hormozi thing. I've heard him say that a couple of times. Is he really only reads like old books because books used to be about passing on information to the next generation. Now they're used basically either for ego or for promotion. And that's so true.
So true.
A lot of the books that are like written by some big name is a GoBundance guy that does this. And this is his company. Is he like works with CEOs to like write books and help them get on the New York Times bestseller list. It costs like 200 grand. It's very expensive. He targets like C-suite executives, and like kind of big quote unquote entrepreneurs / influencers. Gets their whole life story. They do these series of interviews. They actually write the book and then they have all of their connections to basically front load all of your sales to get you on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow.
So it's all bullshit. Like, honestly.
Yeah. It's all considered. It's like buying followers on like Instagram or something.
It's exactly the same thing, honestly. It's like the baby boomer, like the rich baby boomer version of buying followers.
That's hilarious.
It's like, so look at how many books we sold, but how many of those are in the Philippines?
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to talk about real quick that you mentioned prior to the show was it kind of related to the GoBundance, like the Kiavi lending side.
Yeah.
Of how like there might not be lending might be drying up a little bit for some of the biggest lenders that are out there.
Yeah. I know. I heard this through the grapevine. I don't know how true this is, so don't take my word for it. But one of the hedge funds that we've been working with our lending company was telling me this on a phone call the other day that with some of these large companies, specifically Kiavi, which is the big one that a lot of people know, they're currently, I guess, no longer lending in Florida. And they've also said that they will no longer do cash out refinances unless it's on loans that they funded the hard money for, which in my mind tells me that they're probably like low on money. And instead of putting in new money to pay off somebody else's loan. They just want to basically rearrange the debt on money they already have out, and they're probably willing to do that. And I've also heard that they currently have 18% default on their books they're trying to deal with.
And that the 18% default rate was the most striking to me because that's a huge number.
Yeah.
I think in comparison, you correct me, but like 3 to 5-ish is like maybe a normal.
Oh, yeah. Like if that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when I first started exploring lending, with the people that were pretty aggressive would be getting like the 8 to 10. But Kiavi's made some just questionable decisions over the years because what they've been trying to do is battle for that market share. And so they've been doing like the 100% financing with relatively easy to get loans. They've really established these relationships with like Collective Genius and all these other sort of like big house flipping groups. And the problem is if you look at a lot of those groups, who are a lot of the members right now? They're the higher performing operators, but they're also the people that have only been operating since 2020 and 2021. And so they don't actually know how to deal with a shitty market, right?
Kiavi people too. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but are they raising from other institutions? Like, where are private investors? Where are they getting their money from?
So I imagine they're selling a lot of it off in tranches, right? So they're packaging it up and selling it in large batches to big money.
Okay.
But I think that where their initial money comes from is raised. And so if I look, because their whole thing, they're trying to be like a tech company that does lending. And I looked this up a little while ago.
So they trade at a bigger multiple. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then like a lot of their money was coming from like Series B and Series C raises.
Gotcha.
So how that works financially, I'm not sure. But if all of a sudden their back end buyers are tightening up on what they're willing to buy, like they're going to be in a tough spot pretty quickly.
There's a narrative out there that like hedge funds are the smart money, right? Like, I don't know. My point in saying that is when I was selling to hedge funds, mostly in like 2023, I was sitting at a closing table and I got a call from like my sales guy. The business said, bro, they just drew all of our funding. We're closing up shop.
Isn't that crazy?
And I had 4 or 5 deals in the pipeline and they're done. They're canceled. Like there's literally no funds.
Yeah.
And so like to say that they overpay, they're not as sophisticated as you think. And when the money's gone, it's gone. Like,
I mean, and I think that people think that because they have a lot of money, but also if you have a lot of money, you can afford to make mistakes and have loss.
Yep.
Right. And so that's what a lot of them do is they kind of just throw shit around because also do a lot of those companies, if they have like 1, 10 or 20x winner, that'll make up for all the losses that they had to get there. And so that's kind of the game that they play.
Now that's whole entrepreneurship mindset. You know, you can have many losses. So it really takes 1 or twice to be a good winner to change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a Jeff Bezos thing is.
I think you're right.
What does he say? You should always try to hit a home run. But with baseball, a home run, the max runs you can hit is 4. But in entrepreneurship, the max runs you can hit is like 1 million, right?
Yeah, it's basically infinite.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think actually it's either Jeff Bezos or it's Warren Buffett in one of his letters. And it was that exact analogy. He's like, you know, if you have 3 strikes in baseball, you're out. But like, I don't have to swing at pitches. I can sit and wait for the best pitch to come across my desk.
Yeah, that's true. That sounds like a Warren Buffett thing for sure. That's more conservative. Whereas Jeff Bezos is like, I'm just hitting home runs every time. Awesome. All right. Anything else to wrap up, Dylan?
That was pretty much it. I think 50,000 foot view is just know your own market, like the back of your hand. Talk to people who are still doing deals because I guarantee there's at least a couple of them. And if you want to, my other thing is like, you're probably going to have to work harder than you are. So if you have a W-2, it's going to be weekends or nights, or just quit your job when you have 6 months of expenses lined up and go for it. Because if you put your back up against the wall, you're probably going to make it happen.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to be agile right now and move your business, try new stuff. You know, people get so married to these local connections and those sort of things. But that's honestly been the biggest, I don't know, say tip, the biggest thing I've pushed for people that are in like, man, my market is so shit right now. I was like, go somewhere else.
The same shit works. Yeah.
It seems scary. It's really not that hard. Honestly, man. If you understand how to run comps, you understand how to sign a contract, you understand how to like find a buyer and make spread. That's all you have to do. It might take a little bit, but at least you'll be able to keep operating. You won't just be flushing money down the toilet in a dying market.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. You can follow us on Instagram. I'm at Mike_invest. Dylan is at Dylan_does_deals. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you want more from us, you can shoot us a follow on Instagram. I am at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestorMan Dan. And Dylan is at Dylan_does_deals. Shoot us a follow and send us a DM to let us know what you think of the show.